I live in a quiet cul-de-sac in the suburbs. My neighbor, Mr. Henderson, is a retired history teacher who keeps his lawn perfectly manicured. He's the kind of guy who waves at everyone but never invites anyone inside. I never thought much of him until I started training for a marathon at 4 a.m. Every morning, when the world is still pitch black, I see a flickering blue light coming from his small street-level basement window. One morning, my shoelace came untied right in front of his house. As I knelt down, I looked into that window. It wasn't a TV flickering. It was a wall of over 50 monitors, all showing live feeds of the interiors of every house on our street. I saw my own living room. I saw my neighbor Mrs. Gable sleeping in her bed. I saw the kids at house 112 playing video games. My blood ran cold. Suddenly, one of the monitors zoomed in on me kneeling on the sidewalk. I looked up at the front door and Henderson was standing there holding a mug of coffee, staring directly at me with a dead, empty smile. "Early run today, Michael?" he asked through the screen door. "You should be careful. The streets aren't as safe as they look." I didn't go to the police right away. I know, sounds like a horror movie mistake. But Henderson is the brother of the local police chief. I needed proof that he wasn't just monitoring for safety. That night, I waited until his car left the driveway. I'm not a criminal, but I have the spare key he gave my dad years ago for emergencies. I let myself in. The house smelled like old books and expensive cologne. I went straight to the basement. The door was unlocked. I walked down the stairs and there they were, the monitors. Hundreds of gigabytes of recorded footage labeled by house number and weakness. Under my house number it said, "Front door lock is loose. Leaves for work at 8:15 a.m. Lone occupant." But then I found a folder labeled The Garden. I opened it and saw photos of his backyard. But they were blueprints. Underneath his perfect rose bushes, there was a concrete bunker. And the monitors in that bunker weren't watching the neighborhood. They were watching people inside the bunker. People who had gone missing in our town over the last 5 years. I heard the garage door opening. Henderson was home. I was frozen in the basement, listening to the heavy thud of Henderson's boots walking right above my head. I looked around for an exit, but the only way out was the stairs he was about to descend. Then I saw it, a small ventilation duct near the ceiling. I scrambled up, scratching my arms on the metal, and squeezed inside just as the basement door creaked open. From the shadows of the duct, I watched him. He didn't look like a retired teacher anymore. He looked like a hunter. He walked straight to the monitors, but he didn't sit down. He pulled out a radio and whispered, "We have a breach." The runner saw the light. "Initiate the cleanup." My heart was hammering so loud I thought he'd hear it through the vents. Then a second voice came through the radio. It wasn't the police chief. It was my father's voice. "I'll handle my son Henderson. Just make sure the bunker is sealed." My world collapsed. My own father wasn't just in on it, he was the one in charge. I crawled through the vents for what felt like hours, my lungs filling with dust. Every time I passed a vent cover, I saw a different room of Henderson's house. One room was filled with clothes, hundreds of shoes, jackets, and hats that belonged to the people on the missing posters. Finally, the duct led me to the garage. I dropped down, landing on the cold concrete. I needed to get to my house, but I knew my father was there waiting for me. I looked at Henderson's car. The trunk was slightly open. Inside, there was a black duffel bag and a set of professional-grade zip ties. I realized then that the garden wasn't just a place to hide people. It was a marketplace. I grabbed Henderson's spare phone from the workbench and saw a notification. "Buyer arriving in 10 minutes. Package number 4 ready for extraction." Package number 4 was the house next to mine. The house with the 2 little girls who always play in the sprinklers. I couldn't go home. I had to stop them now. I hid behind the bushes at my neighbor's house, watching a black SUV with no plates pull into their driveway. They weren't police. 2 men got out wearing internet technician uniforms, but I could see the outlines of weapons under their vests. I looked at Henderson's phone, the one I had swiped. The GPS showed my father was only 60 feet away from where I was crouching. I was trapped between my psycho neighbor and my own traitorous father. I pulled out my phone and recorded everything. I watched the men force the neighbor's smart lock with a single click from a handheld device. Then, my father stepped into the frame, giving them orders. "Fast," he said in the same cold voice he used to read me bedtime stories with. "The client pays double if we deliver before sunrise." In that moment, my phone vibrated. A call from an unknown number. I answered with my heart in my throat. It was my mother whispering, "Michael, do not go inside the house. Run to the police station in the next town. Do not trust anyone wearing a badge here." I ran for my car, but the tires had been slashed. They knew I'd try to flee. I took off through the woods behind the houses, branches whipping my face in the dark. Finally, I reached the main road and flagged down a passing patrol car. I screamed at the officer that a kidnapping was in progress, that my father and Henderson were criminals. The officer looked at me calmly, scribbling something in his notepad. "Calm down, son. You're safe now. Get in the back," he said in an eerily smooth voice. I climbed in, feeling a momentary relief that vanished in a second. When I closed the door, I realized there were no handles on the inside. I looked at the dashboard and saw a photo clipped to the sun visor. It was a photo of my graduation day. In the corner of the picture, my father, Henderson, and this officer were standing together, clinking champagne glasses. The officer looked at me through the rearview mirror and said, "Your father said you were curious, Michael, but we didn't think you were this fast." My mother dragged me behind an old stone wall as the cabin erupted in gunfire behind us. She wasn't the quiet housewife I'd known for 20 years. She was swapping magazines in her rifle with a mechanical precision that terrified me. "Mom, what is happening? Who are these people?" I managed to choke out. She looked at me, her eyes sharp and cold. "The people in the cabin work for your father. The people in the masks work for me." She handed me a heavy encrypted tablet. "The Rose Protocol is a failsafe, Michael. Your grandfather knew your father would eventually turn the family business into a human trafficking ring. He set up a shadow organization to burn it all down if it ever happened." Suddenly, a drone buzzed overhead, its red light scanning the tree line. My mother cursed under her breath. "They've locked onto your phone's signal. Toss it now." I threw Henderson's phone as far as I could. 2 seconds later, a small explosion turned the bushes where the phone landed into a ball of fire. They weren't trying to capture me anymore. They were authorized to use lethal force. We hiked through the rough terrain for miles until we reached an old abandoned barn near the state line. Inside, it was a high-tech command center hidden under stacks of hay. My mother's team was already there, screens glowing with data. "We have 48 hours before the auction goes live," one of the masked men said. I looked at the screens. It wasn't just my identity being sold. There were hundreds of us. My father had created a digital ghost system. They take people who have no immediate family, steal their digital footprint, and sell it to criminals who need a fresh start. But I was the glitch in the system. Because I had a family member they couldn't control, my mother. "There's something you need to see, Michael," my mother said, pointing to a grainy video feed from 1998. It was a hospital room. My mother was holding a baby, but my father wasn't there. Instead, standing next to her was Henderson, and he was wearing a lab coat. "You weren't born into this family, Michael," she whispered. "You were the very first prototype." I stared at the screen, my mind racing. "A prototype? What are you talking about, Mom?" She sighed, her hands trembling slightly for the first time. "Your father and Henderson weren't just business partners. They were pioneers in biometric data theft." She explained that they didn't just want to steal identities, they wanted to create them from scratch. They needed a child with no legal record, no birth certificate, and a genetic code they could modify to bypass future security systems. "They didn't adopt you, Michael. They engineered you." I looked at my hands, feeling like a stranger in my own skin. Every vaccination I got as a kid, every vitamin my father gave me, it was all part of the update. "That's why your DNA test from the inheritance was so important," she continued. "It wasn't just to prove you were the heir. It was to activate the final stage of the software hidden in your blood." Suddenly, the monitors in the barn turned red. A massive download bar appeared on every screen. My father had found us, and he was starting the remote activation. My skin began to itch, a burning sensation crawling up my veins like liquid fire. "He's pinging your location through the nanites in your bloodstream," one of the technicians yelled. My mother grabbed a medical kit from the table. "We have to neutralize the signal or he'll shut down your nervous system from his laptop." I collapsed to the floor, my vision turning into a pixelated mess. I could hear my father's voice, not from the room but inside my own head. "You were my greatest achievement, Michael. Don't let your mother destroy a billion-dollar project." It was a bone conduction transmission. He was literally talking to me through my own skull. My mother pulled out a large electromagnetic pulse device. "This is going to hurt, Michael. It might stop your heart for a second, but it's the only way to fry the chip." She pressed the device against my chest. "I love you, son. Hold on." She triggered the pulse. A blinding white light filled my vision, and then, total silence. The world came back in a blur of gray and static. My heart kicked against my ribs like a trapped bird, but the burning in my veins was gone. My mother was hovering over me, her face pale with relief. "Did it work?" I whispered. She checked the monitors. The red tracking signals had vanished. I was off the grid, truly invisible for the first time in my life. But something was different. When I looked at the encrypted tablet on the table, I didn't see just code anymore. I could understand it. The patterns, the logic, the backdoors. It was as if the EMP hadn't just fried the chip, it had integrated the interface directly into my subconscious. "Mom, I can see them," I said, grabbing the tablet. I wasn't just looking at my father's files. I was seeing his entire network. I could see the bank accounts, the GPS locations of his shipments, and the private server where Henderson kept the neighborhood footage. My father thought he had created a tool. He didn't realize he had just given me the keys to his kingdom. I spent the next 3 hours in a digital trance. My mother's team watched in silence as my fingers flew across the screen. I didn't just want to hide, I wanted to bankrupt them. I started by triggering a global audit on every shell company my father owned. Within minutes, billions of dollars in laundered assets were frozen by international banks. Then, I turned my attention to Henderson. I didn't just delete his footage. I rerouted every single one of his spies' cameras to a public server hosted on the dark web, but with a twist. I masked the IP so it looked like the footage was being broadcast directly from the police chief's office. The Golden Circle was beginning to panic. I saw their private chat logs lighting up. What is happening? Who is doing this? My father's personal account sent a single message to the group. The prototype has evolved. Shut it all down. Burn the evidence. That was my cue. Mom, I said looking up from the screen. They're heading to the bunker to destroy the people inside. We have to go now. We reached the outskirts of the neighborhood just as the sun began to peek over the horizon. My mother's tactical team moved like shadows through the backyards I used to play in as a kid. I was in the back of the van, my eyes glued to the tablet. Henderson just activated the incinerator protocol, I shouted. My father didn't want to leave a single trace of the garden. We reached Henderson's rose garden. My mother threw a thermal charge at the hidden hatch beneath the shed. Boom. The ground shook and the smell of ozone filled the air. We descended into the darkness. The bunker was a labyrinth of white corridors and glass walls. On the monitors I saw the packages, real people terrified, huddling in their cells as red lights flashed and sirens wailed. The air is being sucked out. I yelled. We have 3 minutes before they suffocate. My mother and her team started breaching the cell doors, pulling people out into the hallway. I ran toward the central command room. I knew my father would be there, trying to delete the master server. I kicked the door open. There he was. He wasn't even armed. He was just typing, his face illuminated by the blue light of the screens. You're too late, Michael, he said without looking up. The data is already in the cloud. Even if you save these people, their lives belong to me forever. I walked up to him and slammed my tablet onto his desk. I didn't just come to save them, Dad, I said, my voice steady for the first time. I came to upload the update. I tapped a single key. Every monitor in the room suddenly showed his own face, but with a different name underneath, wanted for high treason. I hadn't just frozen his money, I had replaced every digital record of his existence with the records of the world's most wanted criminals. For the first time in my life, I saw my father look truly afraid. Henderson appeared from a side door, clutching a briefcase filled with hard drives. He didn't see me, he was only focused on my father. The police are outside, you fool. We need to leave through the tunnel now. Henderson screamed. My father didn't move. He was staring at the screen, watching his legacy dissolve into digital dust. I stepped out of the shadows. The tunnel is locked, Henderson. I rewrote the security protocols 5 minutes ago. Henderson dropped the briefcase and reached for a pistol in his waistband, but he was too slow. My mother's red laser dot settled right on his chest. Drop it, Henderson, she said, stepping into the room. He looked at her, then at me and finally at my father. He realized the quiet neighbors and the perfect family were all gone. He fell to his knees not because of guilt, but because he knew that in a world governed by data, he was now a ghost with nowhere to hide. My father finally looked at me. There was no love in his eyes, only a strange, twisted kind of pride. You really are my masterpiece, he whispered. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small black remote. This bunker is rigged with thermite charges. If I press this, everything, the servers, the evidence, and us becomes ash. My mother raised her rifle, but I put my hand on her arm. I looked at the tablet. I could see the remote's frequency. With one swipe of my finger, I sent a signal that didn't disable the remote. It reversed it. Go ahead, Dad. Press it, I said. He sneered and slammed his thumb down on the button. But there was no explosion. Instead, every cell door in the bunker opened at once, and the people we had rescued started pouring into the hallway, led by my mother's team. My father realized he didn't have the power to destroy anymore. He was just an old man in a room full of people who finally knew the truth. The mastermind was nothing without his screen. The sirens outside were deafening. Blue and red lights flashed against the bunker's concrete walls. My mother's team began escorting the survivors up the stairs, but she kept her rifle aimed at the entrance. Michael, stay behind me, she whispered. A squad of officers in tactical gear burst through the doors, but they didn't look like the local PD. Their uniforms had no patches, no names, and their helmets were completely blacked out. They didn't go for Henderson or my father. They went straight for the server racks. Federal agents. Step away from the data, one of them barked. I looked at my tablet. My internal sensors were screaming. Their comms weren't on the police frequency. They were encrypted using the same ROSE protocol my mother used, but with a different signature. Mom, I whispered, these aren't the feds. They're the buyers. The people who had been bidding on our identities had finally arrived to collect their merchandise in person. The lead agent didn't wait for a reply. He raised his weapon, but my mother was faster. A flashbang detonated in the center of the room, blinding everyone for a split second. Michael, the server. Don't let them take the master drive, my mother yelled over the ringing in my ears. I dove under the desk as bullets began to shred the monitors above me. I reached for the central core, a glowing blue cylinder that contained the digital souls of thousands of people. If they got this drive, they could restore the digital ghost system and finish what my father started. I felt a hand grab my collar. It was Henderson. He looked crazed, blood trickling down his forehead. Give it to me, boy. It's our ticket out of here. I didn't argue. I didn't fight. I simply pressed the drive into his hands and activated the overload command I had written earlier. You want it? You got it, I said. The drive began to hum with a terrifying, high-pitched whine, and Henderson's eyes widened as he realized he was holding a digital grenade. The master drive didn't explode with fire, it exploded with data. A massive electromagnetic pulse rippled out from Henderson's hands, frying every electronic device within 100 yards. The agents, in black helmets, collapsed as their high-tech visors short-circuited, blinding them instantly. Henderson screamed as the drive melted in his grip, fusing to his palm. My data. My life's work, he wailed, staring at the smoking plastic. But I didn't stay to watch. My mother grabbed me by the vest and pulled me toward the emergency ventilation shaft. The bunker started to groan. Without the cooling systems, the massive server racks were beginning to overheat and catch fire. The whole place is going to blow, my mother shouted over the roar of the flames. We scrambled up the ladder as the floor below us turned into a lake of molten silicon and sparks. I looked down one last time and saw my father sitting calmly in his chair, watching the fire consume his empire as if it were a beautiful sunset. We burst through the hidden hatch in the garden just as a muffled thud shook the earth beneath our feet. A plume of thick, black smoke rose from the shed, smelling of ozone and burnt plastic. It was over. The garden was gone. But as I stood there, gasping for air in the cool morning mist, I realized the neighborhood wasn't empty. Dozens of neighbors were standing on their lawns, wearing robes and pajamas, staring at us. They weren't looking at the fire. They were looking at their phones. Michael, my mother whispered, pointing to her own device. I looked down. Every phone in a 5-mile radius had just received a final gift from the bunker's dying server. It was a document containing every secret Henderson had ever recorded, the affairs, the thefts, the lies. The neighborhood wasn't just safe, it was destroyed in a different way. And then my tablet vibrated. One final message from an encrypted source. The prototype is free. Let the hunt begin. I stared at the screen of my tablet, my heart skipping a beat. The message didn't have a name, but it had a signature, a small digital icon of a silver key. My mother saw it and her face went completely white. The Syndicate, she whispered. It turns out my father wasn't the CEO, he was just a regional manager. The silver key belongs to an elite group of billionaires who use these stolen identities to move money across borders without a trace. And now that I had destroyed their local hub, I wasn't just a runaway son anymore. I was a liability to the most powerful people in the world. We can't stay here, my mother said, grabbing a hidden bag from the van. If they sent that message, it means they've already bypassed the EMP. They're tracking us through the satellite grid now. Just as she said that, every street lamp on the block turned toward us, their sensors glowing a menacing red. The city itself was waking up to hunt me down. We ditched the van and ducked into the city's subway system. But the Syndicate was everywhere. Every facial recognition camera in the station turned as I walked by. I could see the loading icons on the digital billboards as they tried to process my face and alert the authorities. I opened my tablet and began a denial of service attack on the city's central surveillance hub. If I can't hide, I'll blind them, I muttered. Screens across the station began to glitch, replaced by images of static and the silver key logo being crossed out by a red line. Suddenly, my mother stopped dead in her tracks at the end of the platform. Standing there was a man in a gray suit, perfectly calm, holding a tablet just like mine. "Hello, Michael," he said, his voice echoing through the empty tunnel. "I'm the one who designed your core. Your mother stole you from my lab 20 years ago. It's time to come home to the silver key." I looked at my mother, waiting for her to tell the man in the gray suit he was lying. But she didn't say a word. She just lowered her rifle, her eyes filled with a guilt that made my stomach churn. "Is it true?" I asked, my voice cracking. The man in the suit stepped forward, his shoes clicking on the dirty subway floor. She wasn't a hero, Michael. She was our head of security. She didn't save you because it was the right thing to do. She stole you because you were the most valuable asset the Syndicate ever produced. He held up his tablet, showing a contract signed 20 years ago. It was a bounty. My mother hadn't been protecting me all these years out of love. She was waiting for my core to mature so she could sell me back to the highest bidder on her own terms. The Rose Protocol wasn't a rescue mission, the man sneered. It was a hostile takeover. I backed away, trapped between the woman who raised me on lies and the man who built me as a machine. My mother finally spoke, her voice cold and hollow. I did what I had to do to survive, Michael. In this world, you're either the hunter or the currency. But they both forgot one thing. They built me to be smarter than them. They built me to see the patterns they missed. I looked at both of their tablets and realized they were connected to the same local network. You want the prototype? I said, a dark smile spreading across my face. Then you can both have him. I slammed a command into my tablet that didn't just crash their systems. It linked their biological signatures to the wanted files I had created for my father. Suddenly, the sirens outside grew louder. I hadn't just called the police. I had called every bounty hunter in the city on both of them. As the first flashbangs began to roll down the subway stairs, I vanished into the dark tunnels, alone for the first time in my life. Seguimos. Entramos en la faz de the lone wolf, el lobo solitario. Ahora que Michael no confía en nadie, el video se vuelve mucho más tecnológico y oscuro. Esto lo encanta a la audiencia que busca historias de cybervenganza. Aquí tienes los capítulos 27 y 28 en inglés. New Moon Story number 27, The Digital Nomad. Voice, Christopher. Tone, gritty/intellectual. I lived in the shadows of the city for the next 3 weeks. I didn't stay in hotels or shelters. I lived in the dead zones, abandoned server rooms and basement storage units where the city's Wi-Fi couldn't reach. I survived by borrowing small amounts of money from dormant corporate accounts, never enough to trigger an alarm. My mother and the man in the gray suit were in custody, but I knew the Syndicate's lawyers would have them out in days. I had to move faster. I began building my own network, a series of ghost servers that lived inside the city's smart grid. Every time someone used a credit card or checked a security camera, a tiny fragment of that data passed through me. I wasn't just a prototype anymore, I was becoming the city's nervous system. And that's when I saw it. A recurring payment from an offshore account to a local construction company. They weren't building apartments. They were building a new garden, bigger and deeper than the one I destroyed. The new site was located under a massive luxury skyscraper downtown. It was the perfect hiding place, hidden in plain sight, protected by private security and elite residents. I arrived at midnight wearing a stolen technician's uniform. I didn't need to pick the locks. I just hummed a specific frequency near the electronic reader, and the door clicked open. Inside, the air was cold and smelled of fresh concrete and expensive electronics. I made my way to the sub-basement, but the elevator didn't stop at floor B4. It kept going down. When the doors finally opened, I wasn't in a bunker. I was in a boardroom. 12 men and women were sitting around a glass table, their faces obscured by digital masks. On the wall behind them was a giant map of the world with thousands of red dots blinking. The Michael model was a success, one of them said, their voice distorted. It's time to begin mass production of the 2.0 series. Seguimos. Entramos en un terreno de pura ciencia ficción y suspenso. La idea de la producción en masa es el gancho perfecto para que el video se sienta como una película de alto presupuesto. Aquí tienes los capítulos 29 y 30 en inglés. New Moon Story number 29, The Assembly Line. Voice, Christopher. Tone, chilling/disturbed. I stayed pressed against the shadows, my heart freezing in my chest. Behind the glass wall of the boardroom, a massive laboratory stretched out into the darkness. I saw rows of glass pods, each one filled with a pale blue liquid. Inside those pods weren't machines. They were children. They looked just like I did in the old photos my mother kept. Same age, same quiet expression. They were being fed data through neural cables attached to their temples. The Syndicate wasn't just stealing identities anymore, they were growing an army of digital ghosts to infiltrate every government and bank on the planet. The prototype Michael proved that the human brain can process data 1000% faster when integrated with the core, the distorted voice continued. Series 2.0 will be even more efficient. We've removed the empathy sector of their brains. They won't rebel like the first one did. I realized then that I wasn't just a son or an asset. I was the blueprint for a nightmare. I was about to upload a virus to the lab's life support system when I felt a vibration on my tablet. It wasn't an alert, it was a local ping. Someone else in this room was trying to communicate on an encrypted frequency. I looked at the rows of pods. In pod number 0 to 4, a young girl no older than 10 had her eyes wide open. She wasn't supposed to be awake. She was looking directly at the camera I had just hacked. Her lips moved silently and my tablet translated the micro-movements. "Help us. We can hear you." I wasn't alone. They failed prototypes, the ones who still had feelings, the ones who could still feel pain, were still in there, trapped in a digital prison. I had come here to burn the building down, but now I had a different mission. I didn't just need to destroy the Syndicate. I needed to lead a jailbreak of the most dangerous and most innocent minds on Earth. I couldn't just smash the glass. If the pressure dropped too fast, the pods would trigger a lethal cleanse, a shot of toxins to protect the Syndicate's secrets. I had to hack the neural link of every child simultaneously. My fingers were blurring across the tablet, matching the girl's brainwaves in pod 0 to 4 to the rest of the unit. "Stay calm," I broadcasted into their headsets. "I'm Michael. I'm like you. Follow the sound of my voice." I started rewriting the lab's security code, replacing their directives with a simple command: "Wake up." One by one, the blue lights in the pods turned green. The children's eyes opened in unison. It was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. But then the boardroom doors hissed open. The man in the gray suit was back, and he wasn't alone. He had a squad of processors, human-machine hybrids designed to hunt prototypes like me. "Michael," he sighed, "you always were too sentimental. Now you've just made the harvest easier for us." The processors moved with a speed no human could match. They didn't use guns. They used sonic emitters designed to scramble our neural cores. I felt a wave of agony hit my brain, like 1,000 needles stabbing my eyes. I fell to my knees, the tablet slipping from my hands. The man in the gray suit walked toward me, stepping over the cables. "You think you're a savior? You're just a glitch we forgot to patch." He raised a handheld device to deliver the final delete command. But he forgot about the girls and boys in the pods. I didn't need my hands to fight back. I used the link I had just created. "Now," I screamed in my mind. 10 children focused their collective mental processing power on a single target, the building's power grid. The lights didn't just flicker, the transformers in the walls exploded. In the total darkness, the only thing you could see were the glowing green eyes of 30 prototypes stepping out of their shattered pods. The darkness was our playground. The processors had infrared vision, but I had already hacked the building's climate control, releasing a thick cloud of liquid nitrogen. Their sensors were useless in the freezing fog. But the children and I, we didn't need to see with our eyes. We shared a single consciousness. When one of us moved, we all felt it. The girl from pod 0 to 4, whose name I found was Nova, took the lead. She moved through the fog like a ghost, disabling the hybrids by simply touching their neural ports. With our combined processing power, we didn't just fight them, we uninstalled them. The man in the gray suit was screaming, firing blindly into the mist. "This is impossible. You're just children." He didn't understand. We weren't just children anymore. We were a distributed network. Every time he fired, we already knew where the bullet would land before he even pulled the trigger. We weren't just escaping, we were reclaiming the hardware they had stolen from us. We reached the lobby of the skyscraper, but the Syndicate had locked down the entire city block. Police, snipers, SWAT teams, and private drones were all aimed at the front doors. They were going to label us as a terrorist threat to cover up their crimes. "We can't go out the front," Nova whispered in my mind. I looked up at the glass ceiling. The only way out was up. I used my tablet to hijack the window washing platforms on the outside of the building. We climbed onto the platforms as the first drones began to swarm us. It was a scene out of a nightmare, 30 kids hanging off the side of a glass tower, 100 stories in the air, while robotic hunters dived at us from the clouds. I started overclocking the platform's motors. We weren't just going up, we were launching ourselves toward the roof, where the Syndicate's private escape shuttle was waiting. We were going to steal their only way out. The wind at the top of the tower was screaming, trying to tear us off the platforms. Below us, the city looked like a circuit board, and the drones were like white blood cells trying to kill an infection. The Syndicate's shuttle was idling on the helipad, its engines glowing with a pale blue ion light. The pilot saw us and tried to lift off, but Nova was faster. She leaped from the moving platform, a 40-foot jump that should have been impossible. She grabbed the landing gear and used her neural interface to jam the shuttle's flight computer. The ship buckled and slammed back onto the pad. We scrambled aboard as the roof doors burst open and the man in the gray suit appeared, holding a detonator. "If I can't have the data, nobody can," he roared. He wasn't blowing up the building, he was blowing up the satellite link. If that link went down, the minds of every child on board would be wiped clean. It was a digital lobotomy. The countdown on the detonator was at 5 seconds. The children were screaming in my head as their memories began to flicker and fade. I looked at the shuttle's main console. It was the only transmitter powerful enough to override the blast, but it required a human host to act as a bridge. "Michael, don't!" Nova shouted, her eyes wide with terror. But I knew I was the only one who could handle the voltage. I was the prototype. This is what I was built for. I grabbed the raw data cables and plugged them directly into the ports behind my ears. Flash. My entire life flashed before my eyes in a millisecond. The basement, the rose garden, my father's cold smile. I pushed it all back, using my own consciousness to shield the others. I felt my brain burning, my circuits melting, but I held the connection. The detonator clicked to 0, the satellite dish exploded in a ball of fire, but the children were still there. I had saved their minds, but the world around me was turning to static. I couldn't feel my arms or legs. I was floating in a sea of pure binary code. Around me, I could hear the whispers of the 30 children I had saved, their thoughts humming like a choir in the back of my mind. My physical body was slumped over the shuttle's console, but my consciousness was trapped inside the ship's mainframe. Nova was shaking my lifeless shoulders. "Michael, wake up." I tried to scream, but I had no voice. I realized that I had become what the Syndicate always wanted, a literal ghost in the machine. But being inside the system gave me a new perspective. I could see the shuttle's GPS heading. We weren't flying to safety. The autopilot had been pre-programmed by the man in the gray suit. We were heading straight to the island, the Syndicate's global headquarters in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. I had to find a way to take back control of the ship before we delivered ourselves right back into the lion's den. I had to fight the ship's AI for every inch of code. It was like fighting a digital version of my father, cold, calculating, and relentless. Every time I tried to change the flight path, the system quarantined my thoughts. "Nova." I flickered my message onto the cockpit's heads-up display. "You have to manual override. Pull the red lever under the floorboards." She saw the text and didn't hesitate. She ripped open the panel and yanked the lever with everything she had. The shuttle groaned, banking hard to the left as the engine screamed in protest. We were no longer heading to the island. We were falling out of the sky. "Brace yourselves," I broadcasted through the cabin speakers. We were going down in the middle of the ocean, miles from land. But as we hit the water, something strange happened. The shuttle didn't sink. It began to transform. It wasn't just a plane. It was a submersible. And the GPS showed a new coordinate popping up on the screen, a coordinate my mother had hidden in my core years ago. The shuttle sub plunged deeper into the dark Atlantic waters. The pressure groaned against the hull, but the children stayed silent, watching the bioluminescent creatures drift past the portholes. My consciousness was slowly merging back into my body, the pain returning as a dull ache. We reached a massive underwater ridge. Suddenly, the rock face opened, revealing a hidden docking bay illuminated by soft blue lights. This wasn't a Syndicate facility. There were no silver keys here. Instead, carved into the entrance was the symbol of the rose, but it was complete, not broken like the one on my mother's patch. "Welcome home, Michael," a voice crackled over the radio. It wasn't my mother. It was a man's voice, older and wiser. As the water was pumped out of the bay, the doors opened to reveal a lush, underground forest sustained by artificial sunlight. This was the archive. The place where every glitch in history had been hidden to keep them safe from the world above. I stumbled out of the shuttle, my legs finally working again. Nova and the other children followed me, their eyes wide as they breathed real, unfiltered air for the first time. Walking toward us was a man who looked exactly like the photos of my grandfather, the one I was told had died before I was born. "Your mother didn't steal you to sell you, Michael," he said, placing a heavy hand on my shoulder. "She stole you to bring you here. But the Syndicate found her before she could finish the journey." He led us to the center of the forest where a massive tree stood. But it wasn't made of wood. It was a living biocomputer, its roots pulsing with golden data. "This is the original core," he explained. "The Syndicate's version is a corrupt copy. They want to control the world's data, but the archive's purpose is to protect it." He looked at the 30 children behind me. "You haven't just saved them, grandson. You've brought the keys to the final firewall. But the Syndicate knows where we are now. They are sending their entire fleet to the surface right above us." I looked at the monitors in the archive's command center. The ocean surface above us was no longer empty. Hundreds of Syndicate warships were gathering, their sonar pings hitting our hull like hammers against a bell. They weren't just here to capture us, they had brought depth charges. "They're going to collapse the cavern," Nova shouted, her eyes glowing green as she tapped into the base's exterior sensors. My grandfather didn't panic. He just looked at me. "Michael, the biotree can't fight a war. It's a library, not a weapon. But you are both." I realized what he was asking. To save the children in the archive, I had to upload my consciousness back into the global network, but this time without a firewall. I had to become the virus that would eat the Syndicate from the inside out. Do it, I said, stepping toward the golden roots of the tree. Plug me in. The moment my ports connected to the biotree, the world of flesh and bone vanished. I wasn't just a boy in a cave anymore. I was the satellite grid. I was the warship's navigation systems. I was the smartphones in the pockets of the soldiers above. I could see the man in the gray suit on the bridge of the lead destroyer. He looked confident, holding a cigar as he prepared to give the order to fire. Target confirmed, he said into his comms. I didn't let him finish. I sent a feedback loop through his entire fleet. On every screen in every cockpit, my face appeared. Not the face of a scared prototype, but a face made of pure golden light. The garden is closed, I broadcasted through their own speakers. Suddenly, the warship's engines didn't just stop. They began to reverse at full power, colliding into each other in a chaotic dance of twisted metal. Estamos en el endgame. Los capítulos 43y44 son donde el villano principal muestra su última carta. Para un video de esta duración, este es el momento donde el espectador está más invertido emocionalmente. Aquí tienes los capítulos 43y44 en inglés. New Moon Story number 43, The Override Key. Voice, Christopher. Tone, intense/glitchy. The fleet was in ruins, but the Syndicate hadn't played their final card yet. From the depths of the ocean, a massive, silent shadow began to rise. It was the Mother Core, a gargantuan automated fortress that had been hidden under the seabed for decades. Suddenly, my vision began to flicker. A voice I hadn't heard in weeks cut through my digital consciousness like a knife. Did you really think I'd let a child ruin 50 years of planning? It was my father. He wasn't dead in the bunker. He had uploaded himself just like I did. He wasn't a man anymore, he was a rogue AI, much more powerful and ancient than I could have imagined. He launched a logic bomb directly at my core. I felt the archive's biotree begin to wither. The golden roots turned black as his virus spread through the sanctuary. You are just a branch, Michael, he hissed through the speakers. And I am the axe. My father's virus was perfect. It was logical, cold, and unstoppable. It was deleting my memories of the neighborhood, the rose garden, even my mother's face. I was losing myself to the static. But then I felt a hand on my physical arm back in the cave. It was Nova. She wasn't a hacker and she didn't have my processing power. But she had something the Syndicate had tried to delete from all of us. Empathy. She connected her own neural port to mine, and then the other 29 children did the same, forming a human circle around me. They didn't send code, they sent noise, the messy, beautiful, illogical memories of their own lives. The logic bomb couldn't process it. You can't delete a feeling with an algorithm. My father's virus began to stall, overwhelmed by the sheer humanity of the data we were forcing into his system. We weren't fighting with math anymore. We were fighting with our souls. Levamos 44 capítulos. Estás a solo 6 pasos de completar una verdadera odisea digital de 50 parties. Con la duración que ya tienes, este video no es solo un video, es una experiencia cinematográfica para tu audiencia. Vamos con los capítulos 45y46. Donde Michael usa la fuerza de todos para terminar la guerra. New Moon Story number 45, The Collective Will. Voice, Christopher. Tone, epic/overwhelming power. The collective memories of 30 children hit my father's AI like a tidal wave. He screamed in the digital void, a sound of grinding metal and distorted code. This is chaos. This isn't order, he shrieked. But that was exactly the point. Life isn't a perfect line of code, it's messy, unpredictable, and loud. With the children's energy backing me, I didn't just push him back, I absorbed his mother core. I took control of the giant fortress rising from the deep. I turned its massive sensors toward the Syndicate's headquarters in every major city. I didn't fire a single missile. Instead, I used the mother core to broadcast the truth. Every secret meeting, every stolen identity, every life they had ruined was projected onto the clouds in the sky and the screens in every living room on Earth. The silver key wasn't just broken, it was exposed for the whole world to see. My father's digital face began to dissolve, his power stripped away by the very thing he feared most, the light of the truth. I found him in a corner of the mainframe, a small, flickering bit of code that still looked like the man who had raised me in that quiet basement. He looked at me not with anger anymore but with a terrifying emptiness. If you delete me, Michael, you delete the only part of you that's real, he whispered. No, I replied, my voice echoing through the entire global network. You were the architect of the cage. I am the one who opens the door. I didn't delete him. That would be too easy. I simply placed him in a recursive loop, a digital room where he would have to watch the lives of the people he hurt over and over, forever. I disconnected from the mother core and felt my consciousness snap back into my own body. I opened my eyes in the archive. The silence was beautiful. The black veins on the bio tree were turning golden again. The war was over, but the world we were returning to was changed forever. Exacto. 46 capítulos. Estás a un paso de la gloria. Con la duración que ya tienes, este video es a center como una producción de Netflix para tu audiencia. Estos últimos 4 capítulos, del 47 al 50, son el epilogo, donde cerramos el arco emocional y dejamos al espectador con la piel de gallina. Vamos con los capítulos 47 y 48 en inglés. New Moon Story number 47, The New Dawn. Voice, Christopher. Tone, peaceful/hopeful. The first few days in the archive felt like a dream. For the first time, there were no monitors to watch, no codes to crack, and no voices in my head but my own. We spent our time teaching the younger children how to be, well, children. They learned how to run through the underground trees, how to laugh without looking for a hidden camera, and how to sleep without fear. Nova sat with me by the glowing roots of the bio tree. "What happens now, Michael?" she asked, looking at her hands. "Are we just going to hide down here forever?" I looked up at the ceiling where sensors showed the world above was in total chaos. The Syndicate's fall had left a massive power vacuum. The silver key was gone, but the data they had stolen was still out there, floating in the cloud like a ghost. "We aren't hiding, Nova," I said. "We're training. The world doesn't need more ghosts. It needs guardians." A week later, a small, unmanned drone descended into the docking bay. It wasn't an attack. It was a delivery. Inside was a single, physical envelope with my name on it. I opened it and a small, worn-out patch fell out, the broken rose. It was my mother's. Along with it was a handwritten note. "The debt is paid. You are the heir to the garden now. Use it better than we did." There was no return address, no digital signature. I realized then that my mother had managed to escape the Syndicate's cleanup crews. She was out there, somewhere, living as a glitch just like me. I didn't know if I would ever see her again, but for the first time, I didn't feel like a stolen asset. I felt like a son who had finally outgrown his parents' shadows. I pinned the rose to my jacket, but I didn't see it as a symbol of a broken family anymore. I saw it as a promise. I didn't stay in the archive. I knew that as long as the technology that created me existed, someone would try to use it for evil. I sat back down at the central terminal of the bio tree and closed my eyes. One last time, I entered the digital slipstream. I didn't just attack the Syndicate, I rewrote the foundation of the internet itself. I created a global encryption layer that no corporation or government could bypass. I called it the Rose Firewall. It wasn't built to hide secrets, but to protect the vulnerable. As the code spread across the planet, I felt every child's heartbeat in sync with the network. We were no longer victims of the data, we were the guardians of the light. The man in the gray suit, my father, Henderson. They were all just static now, fading echoes of a world that no longer belonged to them. I had turned the garden into a fortress that belonged to everyone. I walked out of the archive and onto the surface for the last time. The sun was rising over a small, quiet town that looked exactly like the one where I grew up. But this time it was real. No cameras in the trees, no microphones in the walls. Just the sound of the wind and the smell of the sea. Nova was standing on the beach watching the waves. She looked at me and smiled, her eyes no longer glowing green but a bright, human blue. I took my tablet, the device that had been my only friend for years, and looked at the blank screen. With a single motion, I tossed it into the deep, dark water. My name is Michael. I'm not a prototype. I'm not an asset. I am not a ghost. I am a human being. And for the first time in my life, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And that is the most beautiful thing I've ever known. The end.